Stop right there. Have you been posting misinformation or disinformation to YouTube? Well, you're under arrest because I'm the context cop. I'm the information police, and I'm gonna add a YouTube community post to your video. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. Community notes making their way to YouTube, amongst many other things. So if that sounds interesting, and you were able to make it through that unbearable, cringeworthy introduction, then stick around. But I understand completely if you've already clicked off or you want to move on with your life. Let's start with community notes making their way over to YouTube. And if you have been on Twitter or X at all over the last couple of years, you know exactly what this will look like. You know exactly how this will be used, and you likely understand exactly how this will be abused. Most of the time, the way this works is somebody puts something political up, and then somebody goes to IamRight.com, to quote Bill Burr, and says, "My source says you're stupid and wrong. Here's additional information." Or maybe somebody will post a conspiracy theory saying, "Hey, look at this. This doesn't make sense." And then somebody again will go to IamRight.com and says, "According to my sources, you're stupid." And that is how it is used. Most of the time, I find this to be completely worthless. It just seems like political infighting, not political infighting, just political fighting. It's not the same party. It's just people arguing about politics. But it very occasionally and very rarely, I have actually found this useful. Those instances are few and far between. This feature is now coming to YouTube, and I am sure it will be wonderful. I am sure because YouTube has an even larger user base that somehow they will have people who are good actors as opposed to bad actors. People will do everything in good faith because that's how it works, right? This is not currently available globally yet. It is only available in the US, and it is only available in English. Not anybody can just go out and start adding community notes. You have to be invited to be a community noter. I don't know the proper terminology, and I have not seen what that looks like. I have not received an invitation. Apparently, you need to have a YouTube channel that is in good standing to make community notes. And I am an avid YouTube watcher. I spend way too much time on YouTube. It is bordering on, if not a full-fledged problem. And I have not seen this, even though this was announced over a month ago. It's possible I am not part of the beta test, and that's why I haven't seen it, but we'll have to wait and see how this is implemented, how YouTube, or what system of checks and balances YouTube adds to ensure this isn't misused or abused. Hopefully it's not an AI system of checks and balances, because I wouldn't trust that at all. I hope this isn't completely destructive. I hope it is actually helpful. I hope it's not misused or abused, but if Twitter/X is any sign of the things to come, it's gonna be worthless. It's gonna be worthless. It's likely YouTube it's a CYA kind of thing, perhaps. Hey, we tried to add context so we're not politically biased. That's my guess. We'll have to wait and see. If you want to read the actual YouTube blog post, I'll put some links in the episode notes and description. There's not a tremendous amount of information here because it is still in beta testing. It is a new feature, but in case you want more of that info, it is down below or in the episode notes. That is it for the news. Now let us jump to a rant. But first, I need to get out of this Bandrew from the BSP needs to show up and take over because Officer Tattletale needs to move on with his life. Hey, I'm Bandrew. I'm going to be hosting the rest of this show. Now let's talk about something that I find very exciting, why you may need a DI box. First thing I want to do is provide a bit of context. What is DI? It is direct injection. It allows you to capture the output of an instrument which is high impedance, and then you are able to use that raw signal later. So I'm going to play a DI signal. and then I will play a signal that is run through a guitar amp so you understand what we're talking about. Now on to the question of why you may need an external DI box, because most audio interfaces nowadays do have DI functionality. You can plug your guitar or bass or instrument or high impedance source directly into them and have no issues. So why would you need some kind of external box which costs you additional money? First off, perhaps your interface does not allow for high impedance inputs. A perfect example of this is the WYHTS Connect 6. I'll go ahead and include another sample here. This is going to show you what happens if you connect a high impedance source like a guitar to an input which is not set up to accept a high impedance source. It rolls off all the top end information. Here's a sample of that. So if your interface doesn't have DI functionality, an external direct injection box is going to solve that problem. It converts high impedance input sources to a mic level signal. Then you just run that mic level output into your microphone preamp. Bingo, bango, bongo, you're good to go. You got the DI signal. The second reason is the reason that I find so exciting, this entire thing so exciting. Because not only do these DI boxes allow you to input an instrument and then output into your interface, but it also has a throughput. This means you plug your guitar into the input, you connect the microphone output to your interface, and then you connect the throughput to your guitar amp. What that is going to allow you to do is capture the DI signal, the raw guitar output, while also miking up a guitar cab and capturing that. That may not be exciting to you, but for me, that's just super cool because in many cases, I have recorded a guitar thinking, oh, this sounds so good. And then a week or two later, I think, oh, no, it doesn't. That sounds terrible. Had I recorded the DI signal as well as the amp, I would have been able to rectify that. I would have been able to send that DI signal out of my interface into something called a reamp box, which converts, I believe, line level to high impedance, and then you run that into your guitar amp and then mic up the guitar cab, and you can capture a completely new guitar tone. Had I done that in the past, it would have saved me so many headaches as opposed to saying, wow, this guitar tone sucks. Let me just spend a week and a half trying to EQ it to make it sound better because I don't want to play it again. So just that alone is exciting enough for me. I went back and found stems from my band's recording 15, 17 years ago, something like that. The engineer was nice enough to use a DI box, and he captured the DI signal of the guitars and the bass. And listening back to those recordings, I am glad he did because our amp tones were awful. They are some of the worst amp tones I have ever heard. I don't know why anybody allowed us to record with them. It didn't slap us across the face and say, what are you doing? This sounds terrible. But because we have those DI signals, we would now be able to send that signal back through a guitar amp and get a completely different tone that sounds better. That is what is most exciting to me. But then I thought about how this could actually apply to Podcastage, my main channel. I think this would actually be extremely beneficial, excuse me, extremely beneficial when I am doing microphone comparisons. Because in the past, when I do mic comparisons, I will play the guitar and mic up the cab. That's one recording. Then I will change out the microphone, play the same thing again, and then compare the sound quality. Not only are you hearing the differences in the microphone, you are also hearing minor changes in how I'm performing, because I am not a robot, despite what anybody may say, despite what anybody may believe or think or have proof of. I am not a robot, so I don't play perfectly. I don't play the same thing exactly the same twice. That was a terrible sentence. I am a robot. I am not a robot. So having this DI signal recorded on my computer would allow me to reamp the exact same performance through the same amp, through the same pedals, same tone, same everything. And the only thing that would change then would be the actual microphone placement, or the actual microphone. And I think that's something that Pags over at MEI Studio does, because in his microphone samples, I think it's the same performance every single time. So this is something that I should have been doing a long time ago, but only just recently thought about it and said, hey, why don't you do that? So that is why you may need a DI box, why you may want a DI box, what kind of benefits you could get. This is a special DI box. This is the Rupert Neve Designs RNDI. This does what every DI box does and allows you to capture a high Z input and convert it to mic level. But what this has is a speaker setting, which allows you to send through up to 1,000 watts, I believe. So you could actually run this in between the guitar head and the speaker, and then capture the direct sound out of the amp, and then in post, use some kind of impulse response for a different cab to get the sound of a mic'd up guitar cab without having to worry about the bleed. So if you're doing a live performance and you have a bunch of sounds going on around you, like a drummer, like a bassist, and you don't want that being picked up in the recording, you could put this in between the amp head and the guitar cab and capture that, and then simulate the guitar cab in post. I don't think all DI boxes do that, and that's kind of special with this one. So that is the DI box that I have been playing around with. I need to get a reamp box because I don't have that yet. So I have not been able to actually put this practice to the test. I have used Radial Engineering quite a bit. I have come to rely on them and trust their gear, so I'll probably stick with Radial. But if anybody has recommendations for a good reamping box, let me know in the comments, because I want to just buy it once and buy it right. That's it for that topic. Let us jump to what I have been testing. I am on a microphone just because it sounded fun to me. Just because it's exactly why I got excited about a DI box. Hey, you can capture the DI signal and capture a guitar amp at the same time. That's exciting to me. Just like, hey, I just want to put the TLM49 up on the stand and use that. And that's exciting to me. That is why I do all this stuff. For most people, they're thinking this guy is a lunatic. Why are you excited about the ability that DI signal sounds terrible? Why are you excited about that? I don't know. It's fun. Why are you excited about using the TLM49? I don't know. I remember liking it, and I had the ability to put it on the stand, so I said, why not? And isn't that fun? Isn't that why we do all of this? Why we collect microphones? Don't start collecting microphones. There's a saying in the watch community: don't start watch collecting because it is a deep dark hole. Don't start microphone collecting. Yeah, it's a bad idea. Just get the microphone you need and make whatever you need to with it. I'm going to take a water break and then we'll go to what you had to say. The first comment comes from Pags over at MEI Studio, who I have already referenced once, so let's make it twice. Let's see if we can make it a threefer. He says, Interestingly enough, the vocal isolation algos, while solo, do sound very artifacty. When you mix it back into the full track, it's usually way less noticeable. Someone did a test on the iZotope Music Rebalance where they separated the audio into vocal, drum, bass, and other. Soloed, they all sounded horrible. When mixed back together, the result perfectly nulled with the original full mix. I can attest to the live video not being live. I've done a few DVDs for bands over the years where it's fixed. A lot of time there are issues with the audio, distortion, bleed, mistakes, etc. In all of my instances, the audio was done months or even years later in the studio. The tone doesn't matter at all as you have no reference once it's replaced, but you usually don't make the audio sound as pristine as you would for a studio release. It takes a while to get right since a lot of times you need the vocals to be really close to the original as possible timing-wise. I had a band that played one of the last shows ever at CBGB's in New York City. The audio multi-track from the show was horrible on DA98 tapes. The video was even worse quality, but it was what it was and the show had great energy. Pags, thank you very much for the comment and the information. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with the class. So thank you very much, and I am sure the class thanks you as well. Go ahead, class. Thank Pags. I don't know why they're so quiet. I must have been giving bands a bit too much credit here, because the reason I was concerned about amp tones matching is I was assuming they would only replace the mistakes. Oh, we were a little sloppy, a little loose on this one portion of the performance. Let's just replace those 4 bars. I wasn't thinking, oh, we'll just re-record everything so it's not a live performance at all. I wasn't thinking that low bar. I wasn't thinking they would stoop that. Maybe that's unfair. Stooping that low may be a bit too harsh. But that is completely removing any and all live aspects from that performance, which seems very sleazy and disingenuous. I have no problem with a little bit of editing. I have no problem with a little bit of tuning. Heck, I did exactly that. Hey, we played it a little bit sloppier at this part, and we played that same part a little bit later. It was a bit better. Let's see if we can try to match those up and get a better sounding overall performance. Hey, the vocals were a little bit out of tune. Let's go ahead and ISO those and try to tune them up so it sounds a little bit better. I have no problem with that. But for the most part, the performance was as it was. I had no concept that... Let's just scratch all of it. Just not a single second of the live guitar will be in there, and we'll just re-record all of it. Not a single second of the original live bass will be in there. We'll just replace it. Not a single second of the live vocals will be in there. We'll just re-record them. That's kind of baffling to me that they would go to that extent, because why not just do a new studio release? Like, that's all it is. The drums must still be live from the concert, though, or the drummer is just really good at matching up exactly what he did, and when he's not perfect, they just use a different angle to mask that he's not playing perfectly on time or perfectly exactly what he had played live. I'm gonna watch these live concerts much more critically now, because knowing that just all the guitars are re-recorded, knowing all the vocals are re-recorded is kind of shocking. Thank you very much, Pags. I appreciate you sharing that. Next, we have a comment from Dracomes. He says, I was listening to your take on saving money on travel, and it was a bit different from what I was expecting. I think especially when traveling internationally. This is an area I wouldn't skip on. Let me elaborate. So, in the first trip, you mentioned packing your own lunch. I feel like that's more what I would do at home in the US. When traveling, I'm open to trying out all different cuisines and foods. If I'm in Thailand, I'm trying the food there. If I'm in New York, I need to try the restaurants there. That's part of the experience of travel. For the second tip, I kind of disagree too, but hear me out. I love traveling, and whenever I travel to different countries and hotels, you get free water bottles. At first, I thought, wow, free water bottles, but then I realized there are definitely good and not so great water brands, even in the US. So I'm that person who figures out what the good water brands are and gets those instead of using the freebies. The third tip was interesting. I thought you were going to mention skipping hotel breakfasts to try local food, but you said bring instant oatmeal. For me, I also skip hotel breakfast deals, but I prefer exploring local breakfast spots. Overall, I don't skimp out on food when traveling. I save money on airfare and hotels, but food is an important part of the travel experience for me. Eating out and trying local food has been super rewarding. Dracomes, thank you very much for the comment, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on travel, what you get value out of, and what you find to be rewarding. I think what it comes down to is really different reasons for travel. A lot of people have different perspectives on this. I know I'm a bit weird here, though. I understand there are a lot of people who get tremendous value out of food, out of dining. There is even food tourism. People will travel to places just because there are good restaurants there, and that is why they're traveling. That is the value they get out of it. That is the reward that they get out of it. For me, the food, the drink, that has no bearing on where I'm going or what I'm doing. The entire reason I have been going on trips is to see people, to have experiences. The food is the bottom of the list. I could not care less about it. I could drink gas station. I would not drink garbage can coffee, just to be clear. I would drink gas station coffee every day and save a couple of bucks as opposed to going to some fancy coffee shop because I don't care. When I was packing my lunch, yes, one of those trips, I was driving. What is there on the drive? Garbage gas station food that is overpriced and terrible for you, or fast food which is overpriced and terrible for you. So instead of buying that, I packed my lunch. I packed some apples, I had a sandwich, I was good to go, and I spent $2 as opposed to 30. When I was going to fly to New York, I packed my lunch again. I made a sandwich, I had an apple. That's all you could really take. You can't take coffee with you, they'll make you throw it out. So I had that in my bag ready to go so that when I had to eat, I had spent $2 as opposed to the $40 people are paying now to get a single meal at the airport. I don't care about the food. That is not part of the experience. When I was going out to play with my friends, when I was going out to play with my friends, I sounded like a 6-year-old there. When I was going out to play music in a band, that was the primary reason. So when I was eating a meal or drinking coffee by myself, I didn't go out to restaurants. I didn't go out to coffee shops because that didn't matter. I would choose the option that was the cheapest. So that was going down to the hotel desk saying, "More coffee, please. Give me coffee so I can make coffee. I paid you money. Give me coffee, please." Is it delicious? No. But it saved me $5 a day. Over a week, that's almost $30. That's pretty sweet savings. And I couldn't care less about it. For breakfast, instead of spending $8, I would spend 35 cents, maybe 70 cents if I ate 2 of them in a single day with a banana, with an apple. So maybe a $1.50 breakfast. That's pretty sweet as opposed to $8. Over a week, that's a lot of savings. So I really think it comes down to why we're traveling and what we find the most rewarding. I found the most enjoyment out of spending time with my friends. That is where I got all of the enjoyment out of travel. The food if we were all together and they wanted to go out to eat, I would tag along. I'm not saying, no, I'm going to sit in the practice space in this basement and eat my sandwich while you all go out to I'm not that psychopathic. I am not that much of a loner. I am not that frugal because the entire purpose of being there was to hang out with my friends. So I would go with them to a restaurant. But if the option was spend money to eat by myself or drink coffee by myself, I'm going to go the cheap way. If I were to go to England or something, again, I probably wouldn't prioritize food too much. I went through a huge shift in my thinking a couple of years ago where I kind of disassociated this overwhelming sense of enjoyment and reward from food because I just have a very unhealthy relationship with food. So if I was going to England or any country, I would allocate the majority of my budget to experiences. Okay, I have a few minutes. What can I afford that I can shove down my face quick enough to get on the bus to go to Stonehenge or go to this famous castle where this war happened and somebody was beheaded or something? I want to go do that. That's what I find the most value in, the actual experiences. And for other people, they get the value and the enjoyment out of the food. More power to them. I'm just choosing to allocate my budget, my travel budget, elsewhere. Or if I don't have to spend it, I don't need to exhaust the entire budget. That's pretty sweet. Coming back saying, hey, I allocated $150 for food. I only spent $60. That's pretty tight. Let's put the rest of that back in savings. That's my take on it, but I appreciate hearing a different point of view because I understand people have very different justifications or very different reasons for travel. For me, it's the experience. For me, it's hanging out with my friends, and simultaneously, I like saving money. For other people, it may be clubbing. They may go certain places because they like clubbing. Maybe there's a special brewery they like going to. Maybe it's drinking. Maybe it is the food. So I appreciate it. That is it for what you had to say. Now we are jumping to the value for value segment. V for V. V for V. What that means, I don't put this show behind a paywall. I just try to add as much value as I can. I throw them out there free of charge, no ads, no nothing. And if you get value out of it, I just ask you return that because these mustaches are not cheap, man. These mustaches are not, they actually kind of are. I have like a bag of 200 of them and I may have spent $10 on them. So yeah, they're kind of cheap. I mean, context cop. There's no escape hatch. Somebody pull the lever. I need to get out of here. Okay, first super thanks comes from TechMed Raina Richter. He says, Danke with 50 euro. Raina, thank you so much for the 50 euro. I really do appreciate your continued support and putting up with me because this show just keeps getting more insane as I just kind of get loosey-gooseier and just hanging out. So I appreciate you sticking with me and continuing to support the show. It really does mean the world to me. And secondly, we have 20 USD from Betty Kev 1. He says, enjoyed the lessons learned about live versus studio techniques. Thanks. Kev, thank you very much for the 20 USD, and I am so happy to hear that you learned something or enjoyed the lessons that I learned from live versus studio techniques because it was just eye-opening for me. I have been stuck in a studio exclusively for a decade now. No, I have not been on stage in 15 years. So for 15 years, all I have done is just hang out in a studio. And getting back on stage, and in particularly hearing the stems from that live show was just eye-opening. It kind of recontextualized everything for me. It made me understand so much better why certain choices are made. A lot of times I discuss, a lot of these handheld mics are a bit too bright for my taste. That's in the studio. And I stick by that 100%. I think a lot of these handheld mics, when they're used like I use them at a studio 3 inches off, they are too bright. But if you use them on stage, where your lips are on the microphone's grill, they're not too bright. It actually sounds kind of natural because that boost is offset by the massive proximity effect, so it doesn't sound super thin and grating. So it was really exciting to hear all that stuff and just have this kind of aha moment. Even though this is stuff I would have known 15 plus years ago, it just out of sight, out of mind, I guess. It's just been so long since I've experienced any of that. It was a new kind of thing. All right. That is it for value. I don't have any Ask Bandrews. I don't think I have any recommendations this week. I saw Twisters. That was fine. It was a fine movie. Big action movie. Fun. Good soundtrack. Good music. I don't know if I'd recommend it, though. Yeah, I guess. This is a weekly recommendation. Twisters, I guess. All right, that's gonna wrap up today. I appreciate you all coming by. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I know you could do anything with your time. Your time is valuable. You could be hanging with friends, reading a book, enjoying a concert, anything. And the fact that you choose to spend any amount of time with me is humbling, and I really do appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will be back. I will be talking at you, with you, about you. See you later. Bye-bye. Woo. Whoa. Boop.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.